That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Push, the third feature directed by David Charbonier and Justin Douglas Powell, which Shudder is releasing on its streaming service July 11th, 2025.
I know we reviewed 2 films from these directors.
That's correct.
The Djinn.
Yes.
And The Boy Behind the Door.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And Djinn as in the spirits, not the alcoholic.
The spirit.
Not the libation.
What is Push about? A pregnant realtor is trapped during an open house by a sadistic intruder. As she goes into labor, she must outwit her attacker and escape the isolated estate before it's too late. What is your pull quote?
Push may ultimately aggravate thanks to the number of unanswered questions generated by its ambiguous villain and his murky motives, but tonally it's a sinister simmer casually edging its audience to climax, or you could say anticlimax, really.
Mine. With its ambiguous villain and slowly paced cat and mouse game, Push fails to deliver a thriller with much tension. I was frustrated with this movie.
You were super frustrated. But I think some of the choices made purposefully tried to generate that feeling because there are a lot of unanswered questions.
I mean, the story's pretty simple. This lady who has moved from Spain to Michigan after the death of her baby daddy is now a real estate agent, and she is hosting an open house at this huge mansion.
Natalie, played by Alicia Sanz, who we reviewed in that film Simulant, if you remember that, with Jordana Brewster.
Okay.
Which I didn't care for.
So she gets there, no one shows up, the house is creepy, the cinematography is, everything's very dark, and so it's just kind of inherently creepy.
It is. I like the opening of it when she gets to the house and you get to see like the rolling hills beyond. I liked how that looked.
So all of a sudden this man shows up, played by Raúl Castillo. And it's clear immediately that he's not there as a prospective buyer. And he kind of creeps her out, but ultimately leaves. After she says, okay, well, it's time to pack things up. So she goes out to her Porsche convertible, which I thought was a really odd car to have in Michigan. But anyway, she goes to start her car and it won't start. So she calls a mechanic. The mechanic eventually comes, but not after she thinks she hears and sees things. The mechanic comes, goes missing. We find the mechanic dead. And then all of a sudden, Raúl Castillo pops back up, and it's clear that he's trying to kill her.
Her water breaks.
Her water breaks.
She's very pregnant. Yeah.
She's very pregnant. And Raúl's character tells her, I know this place better than you. I know something else. I'm going to cut that baby out of your effing belly. Okay. So a little battle ensues. She's able to get the upper hand after he's killed the mechanic. Also, 2 cops show up. And I'm not quite sure who called the cops.
She did.
Oh, she did call.
She looped back into the house, made a call, yeah.
Raúl's character kills those 2 cops, but she is able to get the upper hand, which we'll get to, and shoot Raúl Castillo. So she wakes up in the hospital. Of course, she's very concerned about her baby because she had delivered the baby. They're like, your baby's fine. It's in the NICU. Okay. But could you go identify the man we found in the house to make sure he's the one who attacked you? Sure. She goes, it's him. And then she has the idea that she needs to kill him.
Well, that's where we get very little information about who Raúl Castillo's character is, and the cop that's sitting in his room tells her a couple things.
He says that this man escaped from a psychiatric ward and believes that the house belongs to him and that he's this man who was born in 1929. I didn't mention the film is set in like 1993-4, so that would make Raúl's character 62 years old, which of course he does not appear to be 62. So the ambiguous nature of it all is like, is there a supernatural component to this, or is he just straight up crazy? He ends up pulling a fire alarm.
She pulls the fire
Or she
alarm.
pulls it, but then we see that Raúl's character has killed a bunch of cops. They have a final battle, and then she kills him. The end.
He gets stabbed a whole bunch of times.
I I really don't like that we don't understand who the villain is, why they're doing this, because if this man, whether or not he's possessed, like the spirit of the old man's possessing someone else's body, or it is actually this 40-year-old man who's just crazy, if he believes that this house belongs to him and he wants to get rid of anyone who might buy it, I don't know why he's playing with the realtor. It really is a cat and mouse game.
It is, yes, and it feels. If the nagging question that I really wish would be answered is why he would choose to do that, like what the ultimate purpose would be.
Because we're also told the house has been on the market for years. Mm-hmm. We're also told that the previous owners died in the house, and people suspect they were murdered, or we know they were murdered. So then it's like, has this person been killing everyone who's in the house because he wants it? I don't know. I think there's so much there that could have been unpacked.
But it does leave you wondering. So I don't know. There is something, I think, to be said, to be left with wanting to know more.
Sometimes, not this time, for me.
Well, because, compared to... Because I feel like this was made probably on a shoestring budget. And to convey that information also would have been kind of one of those awkward exposition dumps at some point. And even the details we do, I think that maybe that was intentional, that you just aren't going to know. Is it like in the Skeleton Key where there's this spirit that's jumping, that has to every now and then get a new body? Is he like Michael Myers?
See, I didn't like that it was giving like Michael Myers, but even Michael Myers has some intention. Like he wants to go back to where he's from and he has a connection to this lady, Laurie Strode. Like, this just feels so random. And then if it is that he just wants this house, then I don't understand why he's playing these games, because we see that Raúl's character has like taken all the open house signs from around the neighborhood, and
maybe he's had to do this before. Ending in the hospital, speaking of Michael Myers, that reminds me of Halloween 2.
Yeah.
Which I like, kind of those favorable feelings. The opening of the film, when we first see Alicia Sanz arrive at the property, the sign says... it references 3 different names: Craven, Hitch, and Wan, which I'm assuming are Wes Craven, Hitchcock, and James Wan, all who have very notable films that deal specifically with a house and or a potential haunting. I like kind of what that trifecta is saying with those references as well.
So the main character, she's from Spain, and she is with this white American man, which is important because that's what ultimately brings her to the U.S., but he is killed in an automobile accident, and at the funeral, she overhears some people talking shit about her.
Her relatives.
Like, oh, she's waiting for someone to do something for her. She's
like a child.
Yeah. So then immediately we see that she's in northern Michigan 8 months later, so clearly she wanted to prove that she doesn't need them and she can take care of herself. So we see her rolling up to this beautiful mansion, and I mean, I don't know. It's not until the 38-minute mark
where something definitive, where rationally the character knows definitively, I'm in danger.
And that's because she discovers the mechanic dead in a bedroom, and then immediately her water breaks. So up until then, it did feel a little languid to me.
Sure. And
you like the cinematography. I think it felt...
It is dark. I think that scene I liked at the beginning, I thought. I liked how that kind of set up the essence of what we were going to be seeing.
But it's not... there are little moments. I mean, well, really the only creepy moment prior to finding out that the mechanic is dead, beyond Raúl Castillo just being like this kind of weirdo who showed up to the house,
saying crazy shit,
is that we see the main character. She's playing Natalie. She's playing the piano.
Moonlight Sonata.
And then she hears a noise or the door knocks. She goes up to check it, and there's no one there. And then we start hearing the piano play again. So of course that's creepy, but then we realize it's actually the record player that wasn't working in the first place, which is what prompted her to play that song. So I don't think that it's ineffective. It's just very slow.
It is
to the halfway point.
I mean, I have a soft spot for home invasion, pregnancy and peril thrillers. Of course, I think it will bring a lot of people in mind of the 2007 classic Inside, by just Julian Maury and Alexandre Bastillo with Beatrice Dahl.
Only in that there's an intruder with a pregnant lady, because the similarities stop there.
That's true, and I'm glad it did.
Yeah.
Because also knowing that this husband died in a car accident, much like the characters in the film Inside. But I also like, a lot of those property-related thrillers, because you're assuming that, having all these ideas about why Castillo's character is there. Did he grow up with his mother working in the house? Did they own the house? Like, what is the connection to the house? And, you know, I thought of Dennis Quaid in The Intruder, or Michael Keaton in Pacific Heights, if you remember that.
I also liked that in the first half, like, why is he here? How is he connected? But then when we realized that he's not at all, or in any way that, like, I just needed like one more morsel of like, why is he doing this way?
Well, what's also creepy about this property is there's a graveyard in the back, and we see a headstone for somebody with the last name Marquez, which I'm assuming his mother was a Camille Marquez, and he spits on her grave. He is vehement.
We also discover through Natalie that, she discovers, which I thought was funny because like she's selling this house and clearly hasn't really inspected it before she's doing this open house, but she discovers that there's like a full like underground passageway that looks like an escape route. I just kept thinking after the movie was done, like, I feel like there are so many other ways to approach this. The way it is feels like they had two ideas and they weren't clear how to merge them. Because if it were me and you want to keep the villain ambiguous, it could just be this guy broke out of a psychiatric facility and wants to get back to this house. And we don't know why, but obviously there's something drawing him there. And maybe he shows up on a day when there is an open house. And maybe there are a couple of couples viewing it. And the mansion's so large that, and he has access through this underground passageway, and maybe he plucks off some of the people before you end up with him against the realtor. And then maybe she gets the upper hand. I do like, as a function of the first 2/3 of the movie being kind of uneventful to me, is she does end up in the hospital. So we change settings, but then it just goes back to what it was in the house, which is like this cat and mouse game. Because they collide in the house like 3-4 times in an elevator. At one point, she and Raúl Castillo's character fall out of a window and they're both injured. She gets a big piece of glass stuck in her foot.
Well, I was also assuming that there was going to be some kind of parallel with the two leads being Latino in Michigan, and she's displaced, really. Like she has no one. That reminds me of Alyssa Paradis in Inside, this woman that's completely isolated, and I think that allows you to tap into empathy for her more than just being a pregnant woman.
I also was thinking, what if like his mom was like the live-in maid to this couple who live in this mansion, and he knows there's something there he wants, or that his family is owed. I don't know. After the cops show up, one of them puts her in the back of the cop car to keep her safe. But then they're both killed, so now she's stuck, and so she's able to break through to grab the shotgun out of the cop car, bust out of the cop car, and then she does shoot Raúl Castillo in the chest with the shotgun.
Straight up gives labor and bites through her umbilical cord.
Bites through the umbilical cord. And then in the hospital, a nurse or a doctor says to, I think it's Natalie, the fact that he's alive is insane. So then it's like, is he supernatural or?
Well, and then when we see his hospital room again, there are 3 dead policemen lying on the ground, and their bodies are scattered throughout the room. So I would interpret that as there being some kind of supernatural element, but I also think it suggests that we don't know. It doesn't clarify that. Castillo's haircut was giving me Javier Bardem in No Country for Old Men a little bit, like it was on the way to that style.
Honestly, the film's so dark, I didn't even notice his hair. I couldn't tell you what I think it looks like right now. We also get several flashbacks when Natalie's character is like in peril, where she envisions her dead. Was that her husband? Or it's not clear.
I'm unclear.
Her dead man. And I don't know. That felt kind of useless to me. I understand the importance of her being this woman who lost the father of her child, and she's alone, and her family doesn't necessarily, it's not that they don't support her, because we get a phone call with her mother where the mom is like, let me do this for you, you shouldn't be there. So, but that they seem to think she's incapable or something. So that all makes sense to me, but then the constant flashbacks to the husband, the man, like what purpose does that serve?
Well, that's what's going through her head, and maybe because she might die. That's what I'm assuming is also running through her head. I initially thought, I'm like, oh, is she being pursued because she's wearing white shoes after Labor Day?
Oh.
But because she's wearing this, she's completely covered in this white, flowy, you can see, her pregnant belly. But there were moments, she reminded me a little bit as a screen presence of Alice Braga, but I kept thinking of the Louis Buñuel film, The Brute, with Katie Arado, because there's some scenes in that with Katie Arado that she has a similar-ish white dress, and I don't know. I was thinking of that watching this.
There are a lot of interesting components, but when you put it all together, this didn't quite work for me.
Sure.
What would you give Push, which always makes me think of Tisha Campbell's first single?
I wish that this would had been called Push It Real Good. And it has nothing to do with the novel by Sapphire, of course. I think it's enjoyable. I think if you're in the mood for this kind of film, it does deliver enough of those elements to be entertaining. It's certainly not reinventing the wheel. I do like seeing Raúl Castillo. I think I'm less familiar with Alicia Sanz, but I think this is a nice lead role for her that she does well with. So I'm going to give it 2.5.
I think it's fine. I would give it 2.5 out of 5. Join us on Patreon and listen to our podcast. Bye.